Hi, good evening, everybody, and welcome back. I had recently posted something that had, in words, basically not me speaking, my previous post, First Peter 5, verse 8, which is, "Be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary, the devil, as a roaring lion, walketh about, seeking whom he may devour." And I was really struck to post that, see who viewed it, if anyone commented on it, and then I wanted to kind of explain it a little bit and go into why I think that this is very important for us to be looking at. Um, so the verse basically states that you have an enemy. We all have an enemy. We all have an adversary, the devil, who, as a roaring lion, walks about seeking whom he may devour. And we know from John 10:10 that the thief, who is the devil, comes only to steal, kill, and destroy. So knowing that we do have an adversary out there whose sole purpose is to basically destroy, steal, kill, destroy your life, my life, that is the reason that we need to be sober and be vigilant. And if you look into this verse, it reads, "Seeking whom he may devour," which says to me that the devil cannot devour just anyone. But be sober means, think straight, and be vigilant means be aware, be on guard, not hyper vigilant, but just aware and on guard. And I want to take everybody to the previous two verses. uh, 1 Peter 5, verse 6, which 6 and 7 precede 8. So preceding that verse is 1 Peter 5:6, which reads, "Humble yourselves, therefore, under the mighty hand of God, that he may exalt you in due time." And actually, right prior to that, in part of verse 5, it says, "For God resists the proud and gives grace to the humble." And so, prior to "Be sober, be vigilant, for your adversary, the devil, walketh about seeking whom he may devour," we see that pride is not a good thing, and humility is something that we would want to attain. And I want to give sort of an example of humility, pride versus humility. And I'm going to speak about my own self and something that's come up for me recently. And I'm learning as I go along. This is me in my own life and my journey. So recently at work, I volunteered. I felt moved to volunteer to do this, to speak to my colleagues about something called emotional intelligence. This is purely from a thinking, intellectual. God isn't necessarily involved in the study or practice of emotional intelligence. In other words, what happens is people leave God out of this. And I was asked, I volunteered and then was also asked to speak to the group about emotional intelligence. And basically, what emotional intelligence is being aware of one's own emotions. And then, as I'm aware of my own emotions, I can regulate them. So if I'm aware that I'm starting to feel fear, before that gets out of control, I can do something in the moment, like deep breathing techniques. Or if I'm aware that I'm starting to get angry, before I have a full-blown rage, I can be aware of these emotions and stop it before it becomes a full-blown something. And I was, basically studying it, reviewing it, because I needed to speak to people about this topic. And I noticed that in the first maybe week or so, as I was getting into all of this studying and reviewing, that I said, oh, I'm doing a lot better in certain areas, perhaps where I might feel afraid or lose my temper a little bit. Now I'm doing well. And what I did notice, because of the work situation, I work in a secular position, that people have different religious backgrounds. So speaking about Jesus is just not something I can do at work. But I did feel the absence of God in that. And what I noticed is that speaking about and focusing on emotional intelligence in my life, I did well and started to improve over a couple of weeks in my own strength. and really wasn't asking for God's input into this emotional intelligence journey, because I was focused on speaking to a group of people in a secular job. So I wasn't asking for God's hand in all of this. And what I found happened was that I had some improvement, uh, and then sort of lapsed a little bit. Nothing terrible, but what I noticed and take from that is that I was in my own strength. And it's something I have found over years and years of many mistakes, and many times thinking that I know, or the world's ways are sufficient to help me through some of these issues, like anger, or like fear, or even pride. That pride, it is prideful to think that I can do this on my own without God, that I can improve my my emotions, things that I've had troubles with in the past, like fear or like anger, that I, of my own strength and my own will, can just do this without God, is pride. And it was a humbling experience for me to see, wow, although I could study this over and over and read books and give speeches that sound good, in my own personal life, I found that without God, it just didn't work. And I have found that over and over again in other experiences. And what I would like to do is, and so I want to point out that that verse, and then verse 7, which I want to come to in our next session, which is casting all your cares upon him, for he cares for you. I'll speak about that in the next session. But that this pride versus humility, or maintaining humility, and then also casting your cares upon him, for he cares for you, immediately precedes the verse that tells us to be sober and be vigilant. And the casting all of your care upon him, for he cares for you, that is speaking about worry or anxiety. So both pride and worry and anxiety will affect my sobriety. When I say sobriety, I don't mean abstinence from alcohol. I mean my ability to think clearly and think straight. Those things will affect my sobriety, affect my awareness of what's going on around me, will affect my perception of things, where I will be off in a way, sort of like someone who is drunk. And when those things are affected, I am leaving myself open to an attack by my adversary, the devil, who is walking about seeking whom he may devour. So I want to just point out that being aware of pride, and which in this case, what I'm talking about is not relying on God, thinking I can do all things in my own strength, and anxiety or worry can leave us open to an attack by Satan, in which the next thing we will have is stealing, killing, and destroying in our lives. And I'm going to explain this a little bit more in future videos. But with that, my name is Melanie. God bless and good night.